Hello everyone, Namaste. Welcome to the Soma Matha online Sangha. Please join us in practice for inner peace, which brings clarity in life, improving health, relationships, success, and prosperity, and which prepares the mind for true meditation, which awakens intuitive knowing and spiritual sight. Each week we are announcing upcoming events and opportunities to participate in the activities of the Soma Matha organization based near Richmond, Virginia. Led by Swami Gananathamritananda, the Soma Matha is dedicated to spreading authentic teachings on spiritual yoga, mantra, meditation, Ayurveda, and other Vedic sciences for the peace of the world. We are working to build a temple for goddess Shakambhari Devi. Each week we'll be sharing a teaching from Swamiji, doing a group mantra practice and meditation, and conducting a simple puja or prayer ceremony to the goddess to humbly supplicate her to bestow her blessing upon the Sangha. A Sangha is a spiritual community who come together to support one another in their practice. Each individual gains strength in their practice from the collective effort of the group. Sangha feeds our practice. It nourishes us and empowers our efforts. It smooths and balances the challenges we face as it lifts our consciousness into the subtler realms. Namaste, I'm Grant Ottinger. I've been studying with Swami for a few years, and he's asked me to lead the Sangha since internet connection at the property is weak and live broadcast is difficult. Swami will be watching the Sangha and participating in the group practices and sending video teachings for the group each week. To receive, we must give. Our efforts to provide this virtual space and publish the many free teachings available on our website, YouTube channel, and Facebook pages are dependent upon your support. We encourage all Sangha participants to formalize their connection by becoming Sangha members and pledging their monthly support through our Patreon. There are 5 different tiers of support so that you can contribute according to your ability. All Sangha members will receive access to additional teachings and opportunities for support in their practice offered through the Patreon. If you would like to deepen your practice and your connection to the Sangha, please visit our Patreon and pledge your support. The link is provided in the description of the video. Please help us to continue this service to humanity by deepening your spiritual connection and supporting our efforts in whatever ways you are able. With cases of COVID rising throughout the world and cases in India still very high, Swami has asked people to light an oil lamp or ghee lamp and recite 108 repetitions of the Mahamrityunjaya mantra daily for world healing. If 108 repetitions seems too many, please do however many you are able. You can reach out to us via the website for questions about this practice. In other news, the property in Hanover is listed for sale. Swami and volunteers are working to prepare the property for sale, including preparing the many trees and plants for transplant, which is not always an easy task. We are still working to raise money to purchase a new property. We have so far raised only $30,000 of our goal of $300,000 by July 13th. We are hopeful the sale of the property will raise some money towards a new property, but it is possible that we may be left with very little after the sale. This will make continuing services for the public very difficult, perhaps for a significant time in the future. If you are interested in continuing the activities of the Soma Matha, please donate and help us. Volunteers are needed as well as monetary donations, so please reach out to us via the website for more information if you'd like to volunteer. Thank you very much. And now we will share a recorded teaching from Swamiji.
Many people now wonder whether taking drugs can be a useful aid in spiritual practice. We teach adamantly against the use of drugs for anyone doing a serious spiritual practice. The effects of drugs are very different than the effects of spiritual practices on the physical body, on the mind, and on the state of awareness. I want to share my experience because I'm in a unique position to speak, having experienced the use of some drugs and also having experienced some of the higher states of consciousness. When I was a child of about 11 years old, I had the unfortunate experience of trying many different drugs, including in one case a very large dose of the hallucinogen LSD. I've also done a lot of spiritual practice, including meditations lasting many months. And by the grace of my gurus, I've experienced a great shift in my normal day-to-day consciousness, and also have experienced the state of nirvikalpa samadhi and other blissful states of spiritual consciousness. And so, from my experience, I want to speak a little bit about the difference between the effects of drugs on the mind and the body and the effects of spiritual practices. First, we should understand that spiritual consciousness comes about with a lot of practice. There's no quick or easy path. It's very tempting to believe that we can have a shortcut in the spiritual practice, but that's not the way that consciousness works. For a person who is having many negative emotions, many negative thoughts in the mind, it's very easy to perceive the effects of drugs as expansive. But when a person is feeling very peaceful and very happy, it appears that drugs have an effect of constricting consciousness, limiting consciousness. It depends upon where a person starts from, how they will experience the drugs. People say the hallucinogenic drugs, which they call psychedelic drugs like LSD and mushrooms and other hallucinogens like the DXM, which comes in cough syrup. People claim that they have mind-altering effects that expand consciousness in the same way that spiritual practices do. But it's difficult to speak on this subject unless a person has experienced the spiritual state of expansion, which comes only with diligent, dedicated practice over time. It is true that the drugs can alter a person's awareness. The visions induced by drugs are always limited. It is often that people taking drugs have a broadened sense of awareness to the extent that they may see, feel, experience things that they don't normally experience. And it is true they may experience things from the spiritual realms. But usually when taking drugs, people connect with the lower astral realm and not the higher astral realm. The connection is limited, and often it's at the expense of losing awareness and clarity of other things. Spiritual practice always leads to clarity, whereas the drugs lead to a lack of clarity. Western science surely has much to learn about the mind still. They're just beginning to get some understanding. But Western scientists can provide some very interesting, useful information there. Neuroimaging allows us to take photographs of the brain which show the activity of various regions of the brain. Recent studies done in universities like Harvard University are showing that experienced meditators are using much, much more of their brain capacity than people in a normal state of consciousness. Of course, we've all seen or heard about the images of habitual drug users' brains, in which the exact opposite is going on. That the brain is functioning less. And so if we are expecting an expansion of consciousness, it should be that a person is getting a broader experience and accessing deeper levels of the brain function and not vice versa. In this way, the effects are very different. When I've taken hallucinogenic drugs, I can say that I had some unique experiences, unlike any experiences I had had before. But I testify from my experience that the effects of meditation are much greater, much deeper. Any blissful feeling I've experienced on drugs, I've had 1,000,000 times greater bliss in my meditations. Any visions induced by drugs have been much less than the clear awareness which has come from meditation. Many years ago, I noticed that if I drank a little bit of alcohol, that the body would get a sensation of tingling and the mind would get a sensation of a buzzing feeling in the mind. My guru at that time encouraged me to drink just a little bit of alcohol, never to get drunk. Ayurveda teaches that alcohol can have a balancing effect on the doshas, especially Vata dosha. And for my health, my guru said it's okay to have a drink or two if you want that. Just don't be dependent. It won't stop your spiritual progress. Don't depend upon it, and don't ever get drunk, he said. I felt like I shouldn't depend upon any external thing. And I felt that I shouldn't drink. But I actually felt better after a stressful day at work. And I actually could sleep better drinking just a drink or two of alcohol in the evening. And so occasionally I would do that. But as I kept meditating, the nerves in the body became calmer, and the anxious feelings and thoughts in the mind cleared. And I felt very happy and very nice. And so when I drank alcohol, the same buzzing feeling felt like a numbing feeling that didn't feel at all pleasant. When a person's normal state of consciousness is unpleasant, then drugs may feel pleasant. When a person is feeling very happy to begin with, then the numbing sensations of the drugs don't feel good. It becomes clear to see that it's a limiting experience. Some people say that shamans and other spiritual teachers have used drugs to help a person begin to experience things of the spiritual realm so they can have faith to do a spiritual practice. I have never met a true spiritual teacher teaching in this way. A true spiritual teacher realizes that there is no quick or easy fix, and that people don't see things for a reason. Maya prevents people from seeing certain things until a person is ready to experience things in the spiritual realm. This is a safety measure that the universe has implemented to keep a person from becoming overwhelmed by things they cannot handle. It's neither helpful nor does it teach a person anything about spirituality to try to induce a quick and easy opening of spiritual perception. As a person's mind becomes calm, as they learn to accept the experience that they're currently having, then their experience naturally expands. But this happens through practice of controlling the mind. Meditation gives a person much more control of the mind. An experienced meditator is much less likely to get startled, also much less likely to get sick, even as environmental factors around may be compromising the health of other people. A person who takes a lot of drugs often becomes paranoid and becomes much more likely to get sick because of the way the drugs compromise the health of the body and the immunity. There's some misunderstanding that Hinduism teaches people to use drugs. They say at the time of Mahashivaratri, for worshipping Lord Shiva, that many people take bhanga or marijuana. And many people do in India, but this is not a practice given by the gurus. This is a practice that people caught in worldliness choose to do, which is contrary to the practice of yoga and spiritual practice in general. It is true that our scriptures say that marijuana relates to Lord Shiva, but they also say that datura, another toxic plant, relates to Lord Shiva. People don't tend to use datura as a narcotic, even though it can have some mind-altering effects, because it can be very dangerous. It kills a person, and by all accounts, from the people who haven't been killed by consuming the plant, it doesn't give a pleasant feeling at all. Lord Shiva is also Lord Rudra, the destroyer, and so it's said that he relates to many things that harm the human anatomy. In the Vedas they describe Lord Rudra carrying a bow and arrow and shooting, and with a sword, and they relate him to thieves and to soldiers and to liars and to violent violent weather patterns. This doesn't mean that we should take a sword and cut off our hand, or take a bow and arrow and shoot ourselves in the heart, any more than it means that we should take drugs which harm the body. Ayurvedic medicine uses marijuana as a healing herb, but Ayurveda has knowledge that marijuana is toxic to the human body. In particular, Ayurveda teaches that marijuana is toxic to the liver. And so before it's used for any healing preparation, it undergoes a process of purification called shodhana, through which the toxic substances in the drug are neutralized, and also the narcotic effects of the drug are somewhat neutralized. There's also some misunderstanding about the use of plants in spiritual practice on account of some of the mistranslations of the Vedas. We plan to prepare a video on this subject. The Vedas talk about Soma. Soma is a god, and Soma is related to plants in the Vedas. Some of the first translators of the Vedas were Christians from Europe. They had been raised in a Christian society to think in terms of Christian metaphysical system and a Christian theology. These translators were at a disadvantage to understand some of the concepts of Vedic thought. In their attempts to understand the blissful states of consciousness attained through doing spiritual practices and offering the Vedic sacrifices, the Christian missionaries failed to get a clear sense of what was implied, because their experience of the world and their belief system limited them from being able to understand what was intended as the sages talked about Soma. Many misconceptions have come from this, and many misconceptions are believed by the Hindu people in India even now. It's important to understand that the Vedas have not advocated the use of drugs, and that the realized saints in India have not advocated the use of drugs in spiritual practice, but they have advocated the practices which give a person increased health and better mental stability, because these lead to an expansion of consciousness, and drugs lead to nothing but suffering and dependence upon the external world. People talk about the visions they've experienced as they've taken drugs, and they feel certain that they've had a deep and true spiritual experience. People come to me and they talk about the lights they've experienced in meditation. And they ask me, isn't this the light of God I've seen? Isn't this a wonderful experience? And I tell them, no, it's not the light of God. This is the light of something lesser. This is the light of some negative emotional pattern leaving from your mind. As you're meditating, you become calm, and so you're experiencing the thoughts and feelings in the form of light. Your experience is expanding. But what you're seeing is not yet God. You have to look deeper. Many schizophrenics have told me of similar experiences to those described by people taking drugs. In either case, I would say that there may be some truth and some reality to the experience, but that it's not the deepest experience possible. One schizophrenic man I knew was homeless. He seemed always to be very unhappy and very afraid. He had some difficulty to keep himself from saying things that were very upsetting to people, and so he was often being beaten by the people around him. In the winter, I saw that he never had a coat. We saw many people give this guy a coat, and the next day he had lost it and had no recollection from his own accounts of what had happened to the coat. He had a great deal of trouble to take care of himself. Sometimes he would be hungry and people would give him food and he would get rid of the food before he could eat it. This is how troubled he was by schizophrenia. Yet some of the experiences which he shared with me, I could see were genuine experiences. Sometimes he would be running around afraid, saying that tall black figures were chasing him, 15 feet tall. Perhaps this was only in his mind. Other times he would say things that I knew he was getting from some place in reality. One time I was sitting on a bench and I was putting beads on a mala, a rosary. In our Hindu tradition we use 108 beads. And so I was counting as I was putting beads on the string. And he sat down and I could tell he wanted to talk. And so I turned to him and I said, "Give me just a minute. I'm counting these beads. I don't want to lose count. I've done a lot of work here. I want to finish. I'm getting close. Let me count the rest of the beads. And then I'll talk to you." And so he saw me counting. I guess he wanted to count also. He took some money out of his pocket. He had about 20 or 30 $1 bills. $30 he had there, something like this. And he counted, he counted, he counted. And as I kept stringing the beads on my rosary, I was silently counting also. And when I finished, I thought to myself, but I didn't say anything, I thought, okay, 108. And so I turned to him and I said, okay, I've finished, I just need to tie a knot here so I don't lose my work, and then I'll be happy to talk to you. And he looked back at me and he said, I also am finished and I have $108. And he put it in his pocket. He clearly didn't have $108 with him. But he did come to that number, 108, I believe, because he got the thought from my mind where I was thinking that. But he appeared to have no idea where that thought came from, and he probably thought that he had $108. It seems it may be easy to confuse a person like this and to steal their money if a person wanted to take advantage of his condition. He was having some supernatural sort of experience of the thoughts in my mind, but he neither had the clarity to understand what he was experiencing nor the ability to control that experience without being afraid of it. This is why we would say he was sick, and not that he was a realized soul having an expanded perception of reality. When a person is hallucinating on drugs, the experience is similar. Sometimes they may feel happy about what they experience, but other times they may feel very frightened and very upset about the experience. And a person using drugs has no control over that, nor do they have any control over what they experience. They may experience some aspects of spiritual reality, but the drugs never give a person clarity to understand that experience or to benefit from it or to grow spiritually. In the same way, a schizophrenic person is limited by his disease. A drug user is limited necessarily by the use of drugs. Every narcotic substance has its own particular set of symptoms as it hurts the body and hurts the mind. It may be that people have to take drugs and come to the pain and suffering that the drugs create for them to be able to learn why drugs don't help anyone in their spiritual practice. But I can say from my experience of taking drugs that if you're seeking bliss, you'll find much more bliss by meditating, but it takes time and it takes discipline. Don't expect immediate results in meditation. But if you practice regularly, the mind will become calmer and the body will become healthier. And as this happens, the consciousness will expand. In my own experience of taking drugs, I've seen it to alter my brain functioning adversely. I've had to do extra meditation to undo the adverse effects of the drugs. And by the grace of God, I've been blessed with the discipline to take the necessary steps and the faith to not get discouraged in my spiritual practice. I pray that the people who watch this video may be influenced toward avoiding intoxicants and seeking the transcendent bliss, which is much beyond the experiences which people usually have as they live their day-to-day lives, and much beyond also any experience which can be induced by a chemical substance. In the time that I took drugs, the mind was troubled with many negative thoughts and many negative feelings, and at moments the drugs induced states of consciousness and experiences which seemed very blissful, but it was at a huge cost to my ability to function in the world, and my happiness at times that I was not taking drugs. And it was always unpredictable. I'm happy to say now that I experience at every moment a bliss much greater than that ever that I experienced from taking many, many drugs. I urge you as spiritual seekers to seek that bliss, seek that light within yourself, which is much greater than what any external thing can ever give you. Seek that light. Do not visualize it, but allow the vision to come to you. In the same way you allow the vision to come to you as you watch television. You don't visualize, but you allow your eyes to see. Allow your spiritual eye to see the truth of the universe. Expansion of spiritual consciousness is acceptance of living here. And it's a broadened experience of being in the body. Even in the state of nirvikalpa samadhi, where there is no awareness of body, no connection to the body, there is awareness. There is a deepened state of awareness of all that is. We must seek to clarify our minds and not dull them. Western psychiatrists wrongly prescribe tranquilizer drugs which numb people's feelings to help them deal with mental illness, when really people who are mentally ill need to experience the thoughts and feelings, and they need to come to a place of clarity where they don't attach to the thoughts and feelings. Things which dull the mind, things which control the mind, lead us to being bound to the world. Things which increase a person's control of the mind. Not the thoughts, not the feelings, but the response to the thoughts and the feelings within the mind. Things which help us to gain more control over our responses to our experiences, allow experience to deepen. This is the nature of spiritual practice, which is very different from the effects of taking drugs.
Thank you, Swami. Now we will do our Japam practice. We have finished our recitation of the Gayatri Mantra for Shakambari Devi, and now we will be doing the Devi Panchakshari Mantra. The Devi Panchakshari Mantra is this 5-syllable mantra of the goddess. It is the same as the sacred Panchakshara mantra Om Namah Shivaya, with the addition of the Shakti Bij Hreem. It uplifts consciousness to the highest state of peace and bliss. It empowers our spiritual practices and grants liberation from all troubles. Though its literal meaning is Om, I bow to the goddess who empowers divine peace and consciousness, whose seed syllable is Hreem. True understanding of a mantra is in the spiritual experience it bestows to the seekers as it elevates their level of awareness through dedicated practice over time.
We will do 108 repetitions of the mantra. Om Hreem Namah Shivaya. 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 Om Hrim 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 Namah Shivaya.
Om Hrim Namah Shivaya. Om Hrim Namah Shivaya. Om Hrim Namah Shivaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
We will now have a short silent meditation. The instructions for the meditation are to sit silently, the spine straight and shoulders back and relaxed. Close the eyes. Allow yourself to see the inner light of the divine radiating from your heart. If you do not see it, feel it. If distracting thoughts or feelings come into the mind, allow them to be. Witness them without hesitation, without judgment, and without analysis. Allow the light of the divine to heal them, bringing deep peace and wisdom. In light, all darkness vanishes. Practice sitting in the inner light, which is bright like 10 million suns. Let this light heal you. Invite that experience. Allow it to guide your consciousness and impel your actions for the highest good of the three realms. Om. Om. Puja is the traditional system of offerings, coupled with mantras and visualizations revealed by the sages to help people seek the assistance of divine beings in their lives and spiritual practice. Puja ceremonies can be simple, as in the case of the offerings made daily in the homes of millions of Hindus, or extremely complicated, as are the rituals of temple consecration, which require the participation of hundreds of devotees and dozens of well-trained priests. The oil lamps, fruits, flowers, water, herbal incense, and other offerings provide prana, or subtle nutrients, for the devas and other inner realm beings to send blessings to the physical realm. The sacred mantras open a channel to the inner realms. The effects of puja are powerful to bring about peace and healing. During puja, problems are mysteriously resolved and answers to difficult questions arise spontaneously by the grace of the many inner plane beings working to fulfill our prayer, empowered by the sacred mantras and offerings. We are conducting a simple Pancha Puja of 5 offerings. These offerings relate to the 5 elements and are Pushpa, a flower, which symbolizes the ether element, Gandha, or sandalwood paste, connected to the earth element, Dhupa, incense, symbolic of the air element, Deepa, light, symbolizing fire, and Naivedyam, food relating to water.
ॐ अद्य पूर्वोक्ता एवं गुणविशेषेण विशिष्टायाम् अस्यां शुभतिथौ श्रीसोममठः सङ्घस्य अस्माकं सह कुटुम्बानां क्षेमस्थैर्यवीर्यविजय आयुरारोग्य ऐश्वर्याणाम् अभिवृद्ध्यर्थं श्रीशाकम्भरीदेवी प्रसादसिद्ध्यर्थं यथाशक्त्या श्रीशाकम्भरीदेवी पञ्चपूजां करिष्ये। ॐ उपस्पृश्य ॐ जातवेदसे सुनवाम सोममराठी हतो निदहाति वेदः स नः पर्षदति दुर्गानि विश्वानावेव सिन्धुं दुरितात्यग्निः। ॐ आं शां शाकम्भरीदेव्ये नमः। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः अस्मिन् चित्रपथे श्रीशाकम्भरीदेवीम् आवाहयामि स्थापयामि। ॐ आं शां शाकम्भरीदेव्ये नमः। गन्धान् धारयामि। गन्धस्योपरि हरिद्रा कुङ्कुमं समर्पयामि। ॐ आं शां शाकम्भरीदेव्ये नमः। पुष्पं पूजयामि। ॐ आं शां शाकम्भरीदेव्ये नमः। धूपं आघ्रापयामि। ॐ आं शां शाकम्भरीदेव्ये नमः। दीपं दर्शयामि। ॐ अमृतमस्तु अमृतोपस्तरनमसि। ॐ प्राणाय स्वाहा। ॐ अपानाय स्वाहा। ॐ व्यानाय स्वाहा। ॐ उदानाय स्वाहा। ॐ समानाय स्वाहा। ॐ ब्रह्मणे स्वाहा। Om Am Sham Shakambhari Devye Namaha Naivedyam Nivedayami Tambulam Nivedayami Amritapaniyam Samarpayami Om Yopam Pushpam Veda Pushpavan Prajavahan Pashuman Bhavati Chandramava Apam Pushpam Pushpavan Prajavahan Pashuman Bhavati Ya evam Veda Yopamayatanam Veda Ayatanavan Bhavati Rajadhirajaya Prasaya Sahine Namo Vayam Vahi Shravanaya Kurmahe Same Kaman Kama Kama Yahmahyam Kameshwaro Vaihe Shravano Dadhatu Kuberaya Vaishravanaya Maharajaya Namaha Yo Vedado Swarah Prokto Vedante Cha Pratishtitaha Tasya Prakriti Linasya Yah Parasamaheshwaraha Narayanye Cha Vidmahe Shakambhare Cha Dhimahi Tatno Devi Prachodayate Om Am Sham Shakambhari Devye Namaha Om Bhurбhuvassuvaha Om Avahitabhyas Sarvabhyo Devatabhyo Namaha Vedokta Mantra Pushpanjalim Samarpayami Kale Varshantu Parjanyaha Prithive Sasya Sahitni Desho Hyam Kshobarahitaha Brahmana Sandhu Nirbhayaha Bhagavata Sandhu Nirbhayaha Sajjana Sandhu Nirbhayaha Sarvechana Sandhu Nirbhayaha Swaste Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahimahishaha Go Brahmanebhyah Shubhamastu Nityam Lokah Samastha Sukhino Bhavantu Aim Kara Hrim Kara Rahasya Yukta Shrim Kara Gudhartha Mahavibhutya Om Kara Marma Pradipadinibhyam Namo Namaha Shri Guru Padukabhyam Ajnana Nashanaya Vidmahe Jnana Prakashaya Dhimahi Tapno Guru Padukah Prachodayate Om Shatamanam Bhavati Shatayuh Purushashatendriya Ayushevendrihe Pratitishthati Om Sahatna Vavatu Sahatna Bhunakto Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Om Tatsate Shri Devi Arpanamastu
Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for coming tonight. Don't forget to join our Patreon. Please volunteer, donate, and spread the word about our upcoming move and efforts to build a temple for Goddess Shakambhari Devi and for the peace of the world.